You guys also know Philippe Martin's here, who will be on board full-time with Team RadioShack come January 1.
Hello, Lance. Just first question, just about the last Tour de France. Did you expect to be as competitive as you were and so strong?
Well, I thought I'd be. I mean, there were days in the Tour, even days leading up to it, that I still thought I could win the Tour. You know, that might. I mean, obviously I wasn't right, but you know, I felt good in training. I felt like the testing I was doing in the month of June was pointing in the right direction. And it's the Tour, so you need lucky breaks, and you know, we got a few here and there, but. You know, Alberto was on another level, really, than anybody else in the race, so it wasn't going to be possible in 2009. But yeah, I thought there were moments where I could do it.
Yeah, Lance. Year ago, the comeback was sort of a theory. It hadn't actually happened yet, and you had something to prove after years off the bike and away from racing. I'm just wondering, a year later, having been on the podium at the Tour, now a team built around you, what the hunger's like, what the mentality's like, and where you are mentally compared to a year ago.
Well, it's quite a bit different. I mean, I think you know, that reintroduction into cycling in the beginning of the year, really beginning in Australia, was a bigger shock than I expected. The tempo of the race, the positioning in the peloton, the day in, day out stuff was just different. The position on the bike, a lot of things I had a hard time adjusting to. But during that time, I mean, I think a year ago I was sitting here, it was just a one-year idea, one-year plan, and I didn't expect to be racing again in 2010. But through that process, despite all the rough transitions and the you know, the rough days, I still enjoyed it, and I still wanted to. I said to myself, I want to do it again, and it's no secret to anybody that 2009 was a complicated situation internally within the team for a lot of reasons, not just because of the ones that most people know, but you know, we had an opportunity with RadioShack to put together a team that really provides a platform for the young guys on Trek Livestrong to advance into, and you know, these things came together not overnight, but they came together smoothly. So, you know, we'll keep going. We'll stay firmly embedded in cycling, and I'm excited. And the only other thing I'd say is that I mean, maybe just a slight correction. I mean, I think the team, the days of this team being built around me are done. I mean, I'm 38, going to be 39 this racing season, so it'd be irresponsible for us to build the team around me. I mean, I think we have to go in as a team approach, and if it's the Tour, we have to look at Levi, you have to look at Cloden, you have to look at the entire team and the tactics and the ideas that we use. So, you know, those days are done, but. You know, I think we got a good, well-rounded group for all the races. Obviously, the Tour is the one everybody talks about, and I think the build-up will be big. But the Spring Classics will be important, and I also think it's important that the team starts hard and strong in Australia, hopefully with some results.
Hi, Laura from Cycling News. I'd like to find out from you. A year ago, you said that you were making your comeback to help the Livestrong Global Cancer Initiative, and also in a sporting dimension. Did you find that you had success this year in obtaining your goals on the bike and as far as your Livestrong?
Yeah, I think we can look at it in a couple of ways. We can look at the global approach, which was the one that we talked about the most and the one that we worked on the most. So wherever I was racing, spending considerable amounts of time off the bike, meeting with fellow nonprofits in those communities and countries, meeting with leaders on a political level from those communities and countries and areas. And then you can kind of sum it up with what went down in Dublin at the Global Summit. We had, you know, more than 60 countries represented, 500 people, billions of dollars committed, and people that went back to their community and started programs that I think will impact lives. So, you know, on that level, it exceeded our expectations. Here domestically, in probably the toughest economy that any nonprofit has faced in a long, long time, when every day you open the paper and read about nonprofits that are laying off people or closing the doors entirely, the Livestrong Foundation was, you know, had our best year we've ever had. So, you know, certainly the comeback helped that, the exposure of Livestrong helped that, the stories that we were able to tell in Australia and Europe and America and Africa and Ireland, wherever we went, helped that, even here in the United States. So it exceeded our expectations for 2009.
Yeah.
Hi. One thing, with RadioShack, we have like 2, 3, 4 good American teams. There is now a new team in England, I think Sky. It seems like you know, cycling is getting more popular in the Anglo-Saxon world. Even you know, the Tour of Australia is getting bigger. Tour of California moving to May and probably making a better position of itself. So wondering if what you think about it. This is what I'm saying is correct, or and any comment? And another thing is I see that in the team there are like 16 different nationality. There is no Italians. If there is a reason for that, or just because no good riders that you think could have been on the team?
Yeah. Well, I think the first part, I think I agree with you. I think cycling is becoming more global. I mean, you saw the big move by Sky this year with big support from Rupert Murdoch and his other companies. You see the American teams that have really come up, and you mentioned Tour Down Under in Australia. I mean, I don't think it's long before a big Australian multinational company decides to put together a team and contest the Tour de France. So, you know, perhaps the sport is moving away from that, and it's not going to be, you know, 3 Belgian teams, 3 Dutch teams, and, you know, 6 French teams and 6 Spanish teams and 5 Italian teams anymore. But like everything in cycling, I think it's cyclical, and most of this depends on sponsorship and funding, and we've just caught it at a right time. You've got, here in the States, you've got, you know, companies like Columbia and RadioShack and Garmin and BMC, which is technically an American team, but a Swiss company, but nonetheless, and like Sky. You start to see these things, and we're sort of riding this wave despite the tough international economy. With regards to the Italians, you have to ask Johan. Why don't we have any Italians on the team? I'm gonna avoid that question.
We didn't find one. We didn't find one.
That's not a good answer.
We didn't find.
There's a lot of them.
We didn't find an Italian one that would fit in. I mean, after the tour, everything came late together. So all the good ones were the ones we wanted. Yeah. Were on other teams already.
There is a chance. I can follow up, but there is a chance that you know we know you like Ivan a lot. Now he's on a contract until the end of 2010. I think there is a chance that maybe in the future he can. You are going to pursue him to get on the team.
We didn't think about that yet. We're going to start to think about 2011 once the season is started.
But in the past, you know, 16 different nationalities, that's a lot for one team. And in the past, like, for example, with Discovery Channel, they wanted as many nationalities represented as possible. And I think with RadioShack, I mean, that's never been part of the discussion. They just simply wanted the best team, the most talented team that we could put together. And it ended up being 16 nationalities. And I think, is that just riders or is that staff?
No, that's only riders.
So if you add staff, I mean, you're probably well north of 20. So, yeah, a lot of languages rolling around.
Lance, for France now, you did not win the Tour de France, but you managed to become very popular in France. What do you feel about that? Because it's an event.
Yeah. No, it's you You know, I think it has to do a couple of things. I think that the fact that you didn't win, I mean, they saw a rider win the Tour 7 times and win it in a very methodical way and win it in a way that for them became old and lacked panache. And so then they saw a guy that left for 3 or 4 years, and he came back as an older rider, and he tried his best, and he got third, and he was content with that. I was happy with, just for the record, I was happy to get third. I did my best, and so I thought that was a good result, having been away and been sitting on my tail for 3 years. So I mean, maybe they saw a different attitude that maybe changed their perspective, and I don't know. It was an interesting re-entry for me in the country of France, and you know, I had good experiences leading up to that. I mean, I think that this, you know, people talk about the sit-down interview with Michel Drucker, where you show a different side of yourself, and he helps you to show a different side of yourself, and so that, you know, maybe helped. And but you know, I try to go in there with a good attitude and do the same thing, and you know, hopefully the result will change, but the perception with the people won't.
Lance, based on your experiences from the last year, again, sort of referencing what your plans and ideas were for the comeback regarding independent drug testing, what worked and what didn't, what are your plans for that for this year? And in particular, I'd like to know what your plans or ideas are for posting information on the internet, since that aroused quite a bit of controversy, particularly the blood values from the Tour.
Right. That's why they're not up there anymore.
Well, I was going to ask about that, because we really haven't gotten a formal response from you on that, I don't think, as to the debate about that.
Well, I think, and Johan can speak more to what the team wants to do from an independent testing program. Something that started years ago with a few teams really became the enemy of the organizations that are supposed to police this globally and nationally. So USADA and WADA, they became the biggest critics of the independent testing programs. They felt that those were a slap in the face or an insult to the work that they were doing. So they've really stepped up their game, and the UCI has as well, with the amount of testing, the level of testing, the funding, the biological passport. I mean, I think if my 50, I don't know how many controls I had this year, 50 plus, I mean, the vast majority of them were from USADA, WADA, UCI, the independent agencies, or the agencies from the respective countries that you would just be in, some of which were well publicized or not, but wherever you are racing, they can technically come and test. So, you know, you've kind of established your own sort of umbrella independent testing program, if you will, because you're always accessible and always reachable and supposedly always testable. We did post them on the web, or the blood results on the web, and then after the Tour, inevitably somebody's going to look at them. It just takes one person to say, well, you know, it could be a guy that you know, graduated last in his class and just got out of college and says, and has one journalist that listens to him and prints that, you know, these are suspicious. And that's, I don't know if this guy graduated last in his class. You know what they call a doctor that graduates last in his class? Doctor. So that's a good side of the room over here. I talk to doctors sometimes. I tell them that they don't like that joke very much. But you know, we took them down after that just because we had put them up all year long, and in the vein of complete transparency, and then to be attacked like that and accused of something that's complete nonsense. It's not worth it. I mean, I think that the testing that we do through the international agencies and the domestic agency is going to have to be enough in the future, and that's my position on it. I mean, that's I suppose, my formal response, but everybody knows where I am every minute of every day. They know how many times I've been tested. I'll let that speak for itself.
Yeah, I'll answer that question. So Rasmus Damsgaard is not going to be our testing agent anymore, for the simple fact that he's setting up his own company and he's actually going to work for the biological passport for the UCI. So he would be unable to run an independent program. And you know, when I started to work with Damsgaard in 2008, It was for different reasons. But we had a discussion at the beginning of our relationship that when his program, and it was in the beginning of the biological program, biological passport, when it would start to be together and too many parallel testings, that we would have a conversation, look each other in the eyes, and basically he called me about 10 days ago to say, to talk about his plans and to say, you know what I'm doing is just, it's just not necessary anymore because the biological passport is such a good system by now. I think it's been proven over the last year that it really works. That we're going to do like any other team and just follow the biological passport for the simple reason that you can only test that many times. And if Lance has been tested 52 or 53 times, probably 40, 45 were from UCI and other official bodies. So we believe in the biological passport, and that's what we're going to be doing.
Hey Lance, Danny D'Angelo, InsideCycling.tv. I caught you the other night on Jon Stewart's show, Daily Show. Very funny stuff. I'm wondering, is there a career in comedy for you when you retire?
No.
When you retire again?
Yeah, no.
It's a simple answer. Happy to be on the American team again?
I am. I got to say, this is the first time we've been together, this group of 25 or so riders and the staff, and you never know what it's going to be like. And I certainly, comparing and contrasting this to last December, I didn't know what that was going to be like either. And this experience is just quite different. And I think that people feel a significant amount of pressure to perform, but not in an uncomfortable way. I think they're excited and they're ready to race, and they see that we can be both very serious, like we were in the past, but also we can be a little more laid back and relaxed, like perhaps we were last year. But I'm having a good time. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but here. And again, RadioShack has been a wonderful partner. They've been great to us and easy on us and very supportive. So all the boys are, I mean, you'd have to ask them, but I think everyone's excited.
We'll ask them next, one-on-one. Also, I wanted to ask, if you were one bicycle component, which one would you be and why?
Wow. Jeez. I have never been asked that question before.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Well, you can sign up for InsideCycling.tv
And answer that? Okay.
or come up with a witty answer and you can do it again. I'll give you this choice.
I got it. I thought you got me on that one, man. I'll get you an answer, man. Okay, next.
Lance, in our last meeting in Ireland, you told me that for the next year you are not sure to be able to beat Alberto in the Tour de France, but one thing is sure, you will be stronger than in 2009. Now you know the team roster completely. Are you agree with what you said?
That I will be stronger, or the team will be
stronger. You will be stronger because you know your level, and now with the teammate you have.
Yeah. Well, I think that despite being 1 year older, I will benefit from the season that we just finished. So all of the training that was included in that season, the Giro and the Tour, which is the first time I've ever done that, that will benefit me going forward in 2010. This December already feels different than last December, just on the bike and the position on the bike. I struggled with my position on the bike last year. As far as the team goes, I think that we have the best team in the world. And if you look at the Tour de France from last year, it was safe to say we had the strongest team in the race. But I think the important thing to understand is that of the 9 riders from last year's tour on Team Astana, 8 of them are now on Team RadioShack. So we took the vast majority of the riders from the team that we wanted, and therefore it remains a strong team. I think we lacked that super high level favorite like Alberto, but I mean, I like our chances with the strong guys we have.
And do you have an idea more precise about the schedule of the next year, except TDU and Tour de France?
Did you know that question was coming?
Yes.
Well, I don't even need to look at the paper, but we'll start in Down Under in Australia. What? Yeah, I got that. And then we go to Murcia and Catalonia. Those are really the only two fixtures. Obviously, Tour of California in May, and the Tour in July. So there'll be other events that fill in around that. You know, maybe some time in Northern Europe for some cobblestone exposure in preparation for the Tour. Have to see what happens in late April, and and then also have to decide about June, if it's the Dauphiné or if it's the Tour de Suisse.
So you choose between the Murcia or Paris?
I think we're going to Murcia, correct?
Mhm.
He says Murcia. Tell ASO that I wanted to go to Paris-Nice, but he made me go to Murcia. Yeah.
So you had a very interesting interview with the Sydney Morning Herald last month, and where Rupert Guinness, I believe, was asking you about the conflict with Alberto, and you said that you used to thrive on conflict and create conflict, but that this one was something real that maybe was unintended. And you said that you had changed from 10 years ago. And so have you made a change? I mean, do you need the conflict? Is it going to be Deathmatch 2.0 next year, or are you going to try to avoid the drama?
Yeah, I think if for people that have been around cycling, if you go back over the last 10 years, I mean, there was always this built-in conflict with Jan, and it was the build-up to the Tour and the rivalry with Jan and my preparation versus his preparation, and that happens in sport. That happens in all levels of sport, endurance sports, contact sports, team sports. There's always that rivalry. That's what you all want. That's what people pay attention to, and everybody sits in front of their TV screens to watch come game day. And then there was a bit of that build-up with Baloki was a big factor for a couple of years, so there was always build-up around that, and somebody would say something, and we were good about just taking little nuggets here and there, just like all coaches do. I mean, I've sat in on plenty of team meetings at the University of Texas football team, and believe me, at the end of every team meeting, the coach posts up what the other team's players and coaches said in the press. I mean, that motivates their guys. That's what teams do. So we did that, of course, and some of it was real, some of it wasn't so real, but we used it to our advantage for ourselves and for our guys. But the conflict last year, I mean, that was a personality conflict. But I mean, that's not to say my personality is good or bad, or his is good or bad. They're just different, and so. We're on separate teams now, and I'm sure that he's glad he went left, and I'm glad I went right. But I wouldn't change the experience. I mean, I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I was loyal to Johan, so I had to be there. I couldn't be anywhere else, and it just didn't work out. But on the bike, I'll say Alberto is the biggest and best talent that we have now, and as I've said a couple times, might be the biggest and best we've ever seen. Off the bike, it's not worth saying.
Do you need that personally to motivate you, or can you do it?
Oh, no. This is good. It's different. I mean, I'm realistic. And I'm also come from the perspective of having been on the team with him, and I saw physically how good he was in the race, but I also saw mentally and emotionally how strong he is off the bike. And so I'm not a fool. I know I've sized up plenty of competition in my day. He's going to be very, very difficult to beat, and some would say impossible. He's a complete rider, and just tough to beat somebody that can climb and time trial that well. But no. It'll be interesting to see it play out, I think, but we'll see.
You mentioned before about the build-up is going to be incredible to the Tour this summer, partly because of what you've been talking about. will you look forward to that? And are there any great rivalries that in other sports you've liked? Federer and Nadal has been talked about a lot. Or a team sport, Texas, Oklahoma.
Well, now everybody in boxing, they want to see Pacquiao and Mayweather. That's what you want. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting too, because I think Andy Schleck plays an interesting role here, and I think he's somebody that, the true cycling cynics would look at it and say, well, talent-wise, they're better matched. And so, obviously, Alberto first and Andy second last year, and perhaps that's the big showdown. The more that we could let that roll out and play, the better for us, because it'd be less distraction. But a lot depends on the buildup of the season too, and how my preparation goes, how successful I can be in the early season races. Obviously, the more successful you are, the bigger the buzz, the greater the buzz, and the press and the fans will run with that. But again, I think it's good for cycling. It's good for cycling, but better that both he and I try to distance ourselves from that, because it can become a distraction, and neither of us want that.
Would you like to meet him before the tour?
In a race or for a beer? In a race, I mean, no problem in the race. Yeah. I mean, all that matters, I think, for both of us would be the tour. Although there are other races you'd like to have success in, that's the one that's 50 times bigger than anything else. So, yeah.
Hey, Lance, I'm Bob Cullen from Cycle 2. What means more to you this week? Getting the guys back together, or seeing the report that global cancer deaths are down?
Mm-hmm. I saw that this morning when I was in the paper this morning when I got up, and then it was streaming across the TV this morning. I always view that with mixed emotions, and on one hand, I'm incredibly happy and optimistic about that, because we see a decline in death. And I think the number that came out this morning was based on figures here in the United States, but I still see, if you go from 561,000 deaths a year to 560,500, that is a drop. But you're still losing 560,500 people every year. It's way too many. So both sides of it, you have to start to see some decline, and ultimately, that if we do our job, that'll trickle down to nothing. But it's still, if you cut off 500 or 1,000 a year, it's still one American every minute, and that's way too many for me. So I also view it from that perspective, and I think that's healthy and honest, a healthy and honest message to tell the people that we just have a lot of work to do, and we're dealing with an epidemic that encompasses 500, 600 different types of malignancies. This is not one disease that we're going to come around and fix tomorrow. You just got to keep chipping away, sort of cell type by cell type, and ultimately, I think we'll make a difference.
Lance, did you enjoy on the bike this year? And second question, why did you ask Geoffroy Lequatre to come in your team, and what do you think about him?
The first question was, I'm going to let Johan answer the second question, because it's his job to pick the riders of the team. The first question was, did I enjoy it?
Yes. Are you happy to come back, and how did you feel?
Yeah. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be back. I did. There were days that I didn't enjoy. The first major crash of my career, laying in the side of the road in Spain, headed to an anonymous hospital. I didn't enjoy that, and I wanted to never come back. But to be honest, there was a conversation with this man to my left that said, "No, you have no choice in this issue. You have to come back." And so, outside of that period, I did enjoy it, and being here with the guys. This is a simple existence for me. If you look at my life the last 3 or 4 months, it's anything but simple. It's left, right, center, north, west, east, south. It's all over the place, and it's a very exhausting life. And so to be at training camp where you're in one place, you get to ride your bike, you get to hang out with a bunch of guys, and it's to me that's a nice time. And so, yeah, we're having fun. I'm having fun.
So I'm going to answer you the question about your French, Geoffroy. At first when we build a team, what you want is the base, and our first priority was to get all the guys we wanted from the Tour de France team together. So that took some time. And then after about 6 to 8 weeks, when we finally had the base of the team done, then you go and look who's left and who's available. And Geoffroy Lequatre was one of them. I'm always in favor of an international team. But above all, it's the fact that he's a good French rider. He was on a smaller team this year, but last year he won the Tour of England. Was it last year? Last year, yeah. There's not so many French riders who win stage races, so he was definitely somebody who stood out, and I think he just fits in very well. He's somebody. He's very open-minded. He speaks perfect English, and I believe in him. He's a young rider with big talent, and I think he fits well into what we want to do with this team.
Lance, I was wondering, on a product side, in the time that you were away, Trek came out with a new Bidone, and I was curious, I was thinking about it during the summer, and the new Speed concept bike. How different was that bike to you, the new Bidone versus the Bidone you were on, or the 5900? And then just specifically, you already spoke twice now about being fitted back to the bike in the last year, and I was curious how much that changed, and if it relates to the new bike at all, or the different dimensions, or what your problem is exactly after being off the bike.
Well, the bike definitely changed because it went from a flat top tube to a sloping top tube, which I was always against, as you probably know. I was always against a sloping top tube, but I ended up appreciating the bike for its lightness and stiffness. The positioning part of it, I just in 2009, I just didn't pay close enough attention to that. So in the past, and I think most of you probably know as well, I mean, I was obsessed with measurements and carrying my tape measure everywhere I went and measuring my bike every day before I got on it. That didn't happen at all in 2009. And my position and the positioning suffered due to that. So just for example, my seat now on the seat post is probably 2 centimeters higher now than it was in the Tour. So just ignoring these things and making big mistakes there. But the other thing too that's interesting about the sloping top tube is that the perception of the rider on the bike looks different. So, because I get, with things like Twitter and Facebook and email, and you get constant feedback from everybody. So you wouldn't believe how many tweets I get from people. Your position looks terrible. Because the rider relative to the frame looks different when it's a flat top tube versus a sloping top tube. And then also there were other changes. In the past, I'd ridden Dura-Ace my entire career where the levers are much shorter. You go to Red at SRAM and the lever itself is just a longer lever, so your extension is different. All those things add up to the images looking different than what people are used to. So then you get the armchair consultants that give you those messages daily. But I think we got it right. We made some changes here with the retool system. On the position didn't so much change. I mean, in the past I was always from the center of the bars to the tip of the seat, 56.5. And that's where it is today. The seat height is where it was supposed to be all year long. It's back to where it's supposed to be. The other key thing is in the beginning of the year I didn't ride a Concours Light. And so after, I think, California, I went back to the Concours Light. So I just kind of went back to the stuff I'd used in the past. Today's changes were all based on Q factor and Johan's insistence that I change pedals finally. So we went with the look pedal today and changed the Q a little bit just based on this imaging that Retool has. So felt good in the ride today, no side effects, no problems. But it's pretty compelling if you look at the imagery, that 3D imagery of how your pedal stroke and the way your hip, your knee, and your foot line up. And so it's good.
We have time for 2 more.
Lance, I'm curious if you see yourself contesting a world championship ever again, and also if you think the hour record is still within your reach.
No hour record. ever. I think Cancellara should do the hour record, and we'll just leave it at that. Let him break it. The Worlds are an interesting idea. Sitting here in December, it's easy to say yes. And then you get through the tour and you realize that you've got 2 more months or 2.5 more months, and then you've got to go to Australia, and the course is not terribly tough or difficult. So probably not, but I don't know. I mean, when the Worlds leave sort of the main part of Western Europe, it's always a great event. It's a much bigger event, at least it seems like, and to go to Melbourne would be super cool. But I'd probably guess that I wouldn't be there.
Why is it so hard for the Americans to send their top caliber riders to the world?
Well, I think it's going to change. I think it's going to start to change. In fact, last week I rode a few days in Aspen with this young kid, TJ Van Gardner, and then he asked me about the Worlds. He said, would you be interested in going to the Worlds, and we could build a great team around Tyler Farrar, because as I said, the course is just not that tough, and I think really suits a strong classic style sprinter. He'd be great there. So there's no doubt that if you look at our roster of all the American pros, you could take 12 guys there that would be very strong. But it's just, people's priorities have to be in line. I think the tour is so significant in the American fan psyche that the World's guys just don't put it on their priority list. And, maybe back in the day it was, but when they moved the date, back in the old days, it used to be a month after the tour. So guys would do the tour, use that condition, do a few races, do the Summer World Cups, and then go do the Worlds. But then when they moved it back to October, it changed. I think it changed its importance on the international calendar.
Lance, Sean Malloy with Bicycle Radio. You talked about building a really in-depth team with RadioShack, but I guess in respect to your relationship with Livestrong and the U23 team, looking ahead, what kind of pool does that really give you to kind of give RadioShack a future? I mean, is it a good opportunity for you to build riders the way that you'd like it see done?
Well, that was always the intention, was that we would have that program that developed young guys. RadioShack, safe to say, I think it's safe to say, won't be around in 5 years if we don't develop great young talent that have compelling personalities, compelling stories, and have great results, and are good guys. So it's in our best interest. It's fun to help develop young guys, but it's in our best interest, and cycling's best interest, that we have this feeder system. And I think really in just 12 months we've kind of come a long ways, and we've got the Trek Livestrong team, and you've got Axel, who's done a great job managing those young guys. We've put 2 of those young guys on the team for this year, on the RadioShack team. And our goal in the future would be just to continue this progression through the ranks. So yeah, it's important. And but again, I can't stress enough. I think that you have to, just having a development program isn't enough to warrant having a very expensive Pro Tour team. You have to be successful, and so. We got to continue to do that and bring guys through the system and help them be the best pros they can be.
Take the last question from John.
Sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit to your individual ambitions in the tour. You said that it's kind of foolish to build a team around you at this point, and you'd be happy to support Levi or Claude and whoever was the strongest rider. And you said with Contador it was a genuine personality conflict, and I wonder, was that a personality conflict or an ambition conflict? And that, could you get along with anybody on your team who was trying to win a race that you also wanted to win?
I don't think it was as soon as he rode away on Verbier, I think before that I still thought, well, I'll have that one good day like I always have. But when he rode away on Verbier, I was like, all right, that's it. He's the best guy in the race, and we all have to do our job. But I have to think back to the 16 or 17 years I've done this. I've never had a conflict like that within the team. You have guys that you wouldn't go on vacation with, but it's never been that. That's not my style. If they're your teammate, they're your teammate. You go to war with them, and you do whatever you can. This was just very different. But again, I think the proof is in the pudding, 8 of the 9 riders from the Tour on Team RadioShack now, and that's a pretty compelling stat, I think, when it comes to Johan's program and to myself and to what we could offer for these guys. And so, yeah.
Can I shoot you just a very quick one? We are. I am sure you heard that we are trying to organize a Tour of Italy starting in 2012, starting in Washington, D.C.
I heard, is that true?
We are having a meeting with the mayor on Thursday with Angelo. What do you think? And would be great for everybody, just for us, as for America, for maybe you will be still around.
2012, maybe. No, maybe not. No. 41 years old, Lance Armstrong. I think it's a good idea. I'm not sure the riders would think it's a very good idea, or the staffs of the teams. I mean, that's an incredible thing to ask for guys to fly. Well, from Italy, it'd be 6 hours time difference, do 2 or 3 days, and then to fly back with the time change. You know, even back in the day, I remember they talked about New York, and they talked about using the Concorde when it was a 3-hour flight, New York, Paris. You know, even then, you still have, it's a very, very big task. I don't want to say it's a bad idea. I think it would bring one of the most important races in cycling history right here to the shores of America. But it would be hard on the athletes, for sure. And we'll see what. I know Angelo, and when Angelo wants to do something, Angelo does it. So I would support it. I would support it because I'm not going to be there flying back and forth. But as a tifosi, I would think as a tifosi in America, I would think that it's a good thing.
Hey, Lance, real quick, we had a couple of local media that want to know your impressions of Tucson and the return here. How's it been so far?
Get that camera back on there. You know, it's we've been here quite a few times. We had one camp or a few days of camp here years ago, and then in 2001 or 2002, I spent about 2 weeks on top of Mount Lemmon, which we had weather similar to today and couldn't hardly get down some of the days. But you know, Tucson is a real cycling mecca, I think, for the United States. You have good infrastructure with roads, good climbs. You have nice flats. You also have a lot of bike lanes, which I think has been is helpful for any cyclist, but even for us when you're rolling down the road with 23 or 24 guys, it helps to have that extra 4 or 5 feet that you can get away or get some separation from the cars. And I got to tell you, we haven't had. I mean, we're a big posse rolling down the road, and the interaction with the traffic and the local people has been wonderful. So, weather was a little chilly today, but it's going to clear up and get warm.